All right, thank you.
Sure.
Like we were saying, I do work at KDE. I'm our statewide school library lead. I work on the digital learning team with Dr. Marty Park and Jeff Cebulski and those folks. We each kind of have our own statewide program that we help support. And obviously mine's school libraries. I was a school librarian for, I forget exactly how many years, about 19 years before I came to this role. I actually started as a music teacher, so kind of a weird path, but it's all worked out. I'm going to try something a little bit different. Like, I know this is so weird, and I did this at Kisti too. I'm doing it again. I'm going to present in Canva on a session about Adobe Express. I know that makes no sense, but I am not married to one tool at all. Like, I like to try them all out. And I noticed this Canva Live thing, and there is a thing like where you can ask questions, and I'm going to copy this and I'm going to try to put it in the chat and see if you all can get in. And if you can't get in, it's not a big deal. I just want to try it out and see how it works. I think you put a code in and then you can kind of do some question and answer things. But the bit.ly for these slides are on every slide. So if you need the links to anything we talk about, they're all in this presentation and you can get to those later. So don't feel like you have to rush and write any of those down. What I do think you should maybe do is if you don't have an Adobe account right now, this part's a little complicated. Like it's not terrible, but if you use your school email address, sometimes that's tricky if your district technology folks have not, approved this Adobe product specifically. There are ways you can roll it out. I have links that kind of help walk technology leaders through that process, and they can do that if they want. But worst case, like I would even take like these minutes while I'm talking and kind of sharing a little bit to just create an Adobe account with your own personal Gmail account or Yahoo account or whatever you want to use, just so you can try out some of these tools. And I would hopefully towards the end, we'll have some time where you can just, we can work on one of these templates together and I can kind of show you the process. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's unfortunate. I think it's exciting. Adobe announced like last week, I feel like everything's changing so quickly. Everything always changes quickly, but they announced last week they're kind of updating their Adobe Express platform, and they have a beta that's out right now. Like you can try it. Like I'm going to show it to you in a minute. And it has some really, really, really huge improvements that I kind of go back and forth between these tools. Like Canva has been around a while, like quite a while, and they've, really developed it and, put some features out there that work really well. I think Adobe Express is a little bit behind, even though it's a similar tool. But I think with this beta release, they're really close to catching up. But I like having the option of working in either one, but I'm going to kind of focus on Adobe Express. I went to a session, I think it was at ISTE. I think it was like a poster session, and Rebecca Hare from Adobe shared this session. And she was nice enough to share these 4 PowerPoint slides with me. I almost never use PowerPoint, but I'm going to attempt it. So I'm going to stop my share and then see if I can share this PowerPoint. It just kind of demonstrates really how powerful some of these tools are. And I have nothing against, like real world, using your hands and markers and paint and poster board. Like that is all really important. I go so far as I subscribe to a box of paper and markers basically that come to my mailbox every month. So I'm totally into that world too. But sadly, we only have so much time with our kids at school, and we want them to, be able to create awesome things and share their learning with us. And I think things like Adobe Express really make that easy, and they can iterate on their thinking a lot easier than they can if, you give them a poster board and they've got to write bubble letters like it's in this example here. So hopefully you can see my screen. If you can't, somebody yell at me. Let me see if this works. All right, so hopefully you can see that. So on the left, there is the traditional kind of poster on this Martin Luther King project, kind of just a quote. On the right is the Adobe Express version. And this has been a few years ago. So, I mean, you can do cool things. A lot of these features are still there. This kind of shows the timeline of the analog creation. So the teacher assigns the work, the student reads and annotates, chooses a photo and a quote. The student starts the poster, works for 1 hour and 3 minutes, I like how it says 3 minutes, not just 1 hour, 1 hour and 3 minutes. And then the student turns in the poster. So that's the timeline for that analog creation process. This is the timeline for the digital creation. So same thing, assigns the work, student reads and annotates, chooses a quote and a photo, student starts the remix. And then this is what they start with, this initial kind of template file down here. And then you can kind of see it branch out. The teacher gives feedback. I like the way you frame this image. I think it would be even better in color. And then the next slide is my favorite because it actually does a time lapse and kind of shows some of this, these design principles in action and like thinking and communicating visually and how we would change fonts and colors to get a different message across. So let me see if this, I might have to, no, I don't think there's music. So somebody yell if the video doesn't play. It's 2 different videos. I'm going to start them both. Hopefully you can see those going. So the person on the left is, you know, starting their bubble letters on the poster board. And then on the right, you can kind of see the Adobe Express experience and how quickly they can change what their project looks like. So they change the orientation, the size of the canvas. They're changing the colors. They're changing the font colors. They downloaded a JPEG there. Like I'm trying to keep up with this. It's a lot. Doing another color thing there. And it looks like they're saving different versions as they go. That's kind of cool. So they can kind of see that process. But anyway, we don't have to go through the whole thing. It just kind of is an illustration of kind of the power of some of these kinds of tools. So I'm going to click stop share. I'm going to close that. And then I'm going to share again. And I'm so out of practice of these virtual things. Like I like the in-person stuff. Like I can tell if people are totally confused or not. And I feel like I'm talking to myself, but that's all right. I'm going to hit share. All right. Can you all see my screen okay? Oh, I see some things in the Canva Live. That's cool. Used Adobe for years. Yeah, the login in part, we got to get better at that. I think we're getting there. It's getting closer, but that is, yeah, Canva Live. I had no idea it was there until I saw it today because I was trying, this is kind of off the topic. Sorry, I'll get back to Adobe Express in a second. I like Google Slides because I can kind of minimize the presentation where I can still see my tabs and switch between those really quickly. There's not an awesome way to do that in Canva. So I'm in this speaker view where you can kind of see the slides because otherwise it was full screen and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be able to click on these links. But this was my compromise to do this. And then I saw the little live button and I thought I would try it out. So this is interesting. So do you all see everybody's questions? I'm just curious. On the Canva Live thing, do you all see everyone's questions or just your own?
Everyone.
Okay, that's good to know. It's interesting. So if I'm gonna click on this little thumbs up right here, see what happens. Can you thumbs up other people's questions?
Yes, we can, but we cannot respond to other people's questions.
Nice, I like that. Yeah, it keeps a count. That's kind of interesting. So I got 46 people in here. That's pretty good. So here's just an agenda. These kind of link to the different slides in this Canva thing. Again, this is a really confusing session to give, and I wish the timing was different, but we kind of have to go with the flow with these changes in products. So there are links here to, help get you started. There's some options, some examples on how to use it in the classroom. The digital portfolio thing is really cool. Like the current, let's call it the current Adobe Express, not the beta. We'll call the new one the beta. The current one has some really cool, basically one-page website creation options where you can, and it's really good for portfolios because you can add the images, and as you scroll down through your website, you can kind of see it move and zoom in and lots of cool features. The video stuff is really improved in the beta, but there's video in the current version right now too. It's not quite the same as using a fully, full featured iMovie type experience where you're editing a movie, but for some things, for some cases with kids, like we don't necessarily want them to spend all that time on that. This kind of lays out a framework where they can fill in the frames and do annotations over top of images really quickly. Kind of, it's almost like the 2023 version of, what was that tool called in Windows? Oh my gosh, it went out of my head. Photo Story. Does anybody remember that? Photo Story, where you kind of just put photos up and it lets you annotate over top of those. This is basic. We haven't moved very far in terms of what we're creating. It's just a different interface and it's in the cloud and easier to use. This education exchange is really powerful. There are some courses that you can go through that are self-paced. You can just watch the features that you want to watch. You can just get little snippets that might help your students out with this. You can also schedule in-person things. The Kentucky Association of School Librarians this past school year, we actually did 4 individual kind of hour-and-a-half long training sessions with Adobe. You know, they provided the presenters, and folks got their, you know, level 1 Adobe things using Adobe Express, and it was really good. And even though it was virtual, but it was, you know, it was live and it was somebody answering questions for you and that kind of stuff. Let's see. This is the deployment resources links that I was talking about that your technology department can look at. There's some ways to, you know, kind of make it easier where your students can just use their school provided account, either their Google or their Microsoft account, their email address to log into Adobe. But obviously that's different district to district and what requirements you have in terms of that, and the, you know, the confidentiality piece, which is important. So just, if it's not working for your school, just work with your technology folks, and because it is free. It's pretty easy to use once you get it working. It's just that getting over that hurdle of getting folks logged on. This next thing is also kind of a beta thing. I have a feeling they'll put this into the new Adobe Express. This has been out a little bit longer than the beta. You can actually animate kind of a cartoon with your own voice. And I'm going to try this and we'll see if it works. What I don't know if it'll do is, you know, you're like Zoom is using my microphone, so I'm not sure it's going to be able to use my microphone for this too. I should have done an audio file ahead of time because there's an option for that right there. Let's see what happens. It might not work, but we'll try it. This is a test. Oh, allow. What's going to count down? Hopefully this is work. Oh, I think it is working. Nice. This is a demonstration of the animate from audio feature in Adobe. So I'm going to click on done. And you saw that screen before this. You can choose your character and what they look like. And right now it's processing the video slowly. Maybe we should come back. Oh no, there it goes. We can come back to it in a second if we have to. So what it's doing is basically creating a video that you can then download to your device and then kind of re-upload that and put it back into your Adobe Express creation. So it's just a fun option for your kids, for you. And then I can try and play it here. I don't know if you'll hear the audio, but we'll try it. Hopefully this is working. Oh, I think it is working. Nice. This is a demonstration of the animate from audio feature in Adobe. So we click on done. Hopefully this is working. Oh, there it is. And then you click this download, and you can download the video and put it back into your creations. Let's see. I was under the impression that you had to, trying to read this Adobe question. Never thought about using it in a classroom setting. Yeah, it is great for a classroom setting. What I feel really kind of weird. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of seeing Mr. Shu. I don't know if you've heard of him. Like Mr. Shu reads, he hands out books to people all over the country. He presents and he has so much energy. Like I wish I could like bottle some of that up from yesterday. He was awesome. With this Adobe stuff, what I really like about their training materials is that they don't always focus on how the tool works exactly. They focus a little bit more on the creativity process. And I'm kind of the thought that creativity is not a thing that you just have when you're born. Sorry, I got a little frog in my throat. But it is, you know, something that you can practice and get better at. And these Adobe tools let you do that and let you do it easily. And you can start with templates. You can kind of give your kids, start them all on the same page and let it flow from there. But I like how the training talks about the pedagogy behind what the tools that you're using and how it can look in the classroom, the ways you can use it. And it's not just, click here, click here, click here. Today, unfortunately, we only have so much time. I am going to show you some click here things, but when you have time, go back, follow some of these people on Twitter, follow Adobe Express. They have a Discord server like Donnie Piercy was talking about earlier for some different products. That'll give you some really good ideas on how to use this in the classroom. I think there's a Facebook group too. That's good. So these folks right here, Jesse Lubinsky actually helped us out personally with our Castle training that we had this past year. And then these are just some more folks that share a lot of great work on the Twitter. Excuse me. Let's see if this, let's go back. Did I not link that? That's sad. I'll fix that later. Don't worry. So we're going to try this. I'm going to give you a link. If you've already clicked this, that's fine too. Adobe puts out these challenges that are kind of monthly, and it's very similar to Canva. You can create a template link that someone can click on. It basically just copies the template from Adobe Express for somebody else to edit and create. And that's what I've done here. Actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and click this link and open it up in my own Adobe Express. Oh my gosh. I'm going to mute so I don't cough all over you all. Anybody else having some fun allergy issues right now? I feel like it's pretty bad.
Oh yeah. James,
Yeah.
by the way, yes. But there's a question or two here in the chat. I just wanted to let you see that. There's a question about, is there a way to make a template in Canva too?
There is.
And,
I can show you.
did we get a code for Canva? And I think that's it so far, yeah.
The code was just to participate in that that live questioning thing. I wanted to just try out. We don't have to stay in there. We can, hang out in the chat from the Zoom. So this is what the current Adobe Express looks like when you open up a template. It's like a lot of other tools. You got things on the left over here. You have some things on the right. You can download it. You can share it, get a link to it. But if you notice, I'm going to cough again, I'm sorry. This to me is the biggest change in the current Adobe Express and the new one that's good. And I actually asked Adobe, I'm like, can you give me like a timeline on when you think this is going to be pushed out for everyone? And then the beta Express becomes the current one. They were like, you know how people are, they don't tell you an exact date, but I think it will be this summer. So that's what I'm hoping for, because it will be ready for the start of the school year to do this. So the biggest change to me that's important for your kids and for you is how you edit text. And like Canva, Google Slides, PowerPoint, you click on the text and you just type. And Adobe Express, the current one, how likely are you to recommend Adobe Express to a friend? 10. It's great. The biggest difference, you click on the text, and then over here on the right, that's where you actually edit the text. So in this template here for schools out for summer, you will find me, and then these are some icons describing what folks are going to be doing. If you wanted to change this text, you would have to change it over here. You will find James, and you see that it kind of edits it over here, kind of moves it around a little bit. You can still move the text. You just can't type right here, which to me is not an intuitive thing. And I was really, really hoping they would update this and get it to where it's more like every other tool in the world, where you just double click and edit your text right there, which they've done. The new one does that. I'll demonstrate that in a little bit. These images are cool. You can click on those. I'm not sure it's exactly the same in the beta version, but over here on the right, you see when I clicked on this, I'm assuming they're going hiking. Maybe it looks like a hiking boot. you can click replace. And when you hit replace, it opens up this thing on the left over here, this little box, and we can type something in. I'm going to type in camera because I like taking pictures. Hit enter. And then all kinds of results come up with cameras. And I'll show you these. I'll show you some more ways to get to these things too. But this replace thing is kind of easy. And then you just click this, replaces that hiking boot with the camera. And if you don't like the size, you can change that a little bit. Super easy, super intuitive. And thankfully they've made that change to that text thing. This circle back here is a shape, and you can change the color of that right here. There's a fill button, kind of like every other tool that we're used to. I really like the color dropper, and this person is not me. So let's replace them. And I'm going to upload a photo this time, and hopefully you all can do this along with me if you have access to it. I don't know if everybody does, but if you don't, just watch and, you know, kind of soak it in. If you can do it on your own with me, that's cool too. I'm going to click on upload photo.
Jamie, quick question. How do kids get to Adobe?
That will depend on that rollout that you work with your district technology folks on. If you're using your school account, it's going to be pretty easy. Like you just use your, oh, this is a good one because I didn't remove the background yet. Sorry, distracted. So choose that picture. And you notice it removed the background automatically because that picture that I replaced already had the background removed. It's that quick. It's that easy. It's pretty smart. And you can move it around, change things. But that is a good question. So for your kids to go to Adobe, I mean, if I'm signed in already, so it's hard to demonstrate it. But if you just go to express.adobe.com, it's going to prompt you to log in and use your Adobe account or your Microsoft account or however you all decide to set it up at your school or your district. So there's that photo thing. And then over here on the right, we could edit that cutout if we wanted. We could subtract from it and restore it. This gets changed a little bit in the beta version. I hate to keep saying beta version, but unfortunately it's going to be the new version, and you all are going to soak it up and magically know how to use both. So that's cool. There's filters that are really easy and quick to use. I turn that off and then just look at these enhancements where you can change like contrast and brightness, saturation. Ooh, blur, that's kind of cool too if you're doing some background images. We'll go through here. And what I like about these shapes and some of the assets that you can download, you can change the color of, which I really like. I don't know, this is not one of them, but I'll show you that in a second. These circles here, let's do that. So I'm going to change this fill, and I'm going to use the little eyedropper and choose the color from my image, like from my shirt here. So it kind of has some, kind of makes it harder to see some of these things, but that's all right. We can change the text color to something brighter. And this is when you can spend some great time talking to your kids about, how we communicate our thinking and our presentations and the strategies we use. Like contrast matters, fonts matter, all kinds of stuff. Was there a question? Sorry. No question. And then it kind of keeps track of some colors down here. There's some suggested colors. Let's try some of those. I'm going to use this one again. And if you notice, like my arm's kind of sticking out over this circle, we could switch that. So over here on the right, those are your layers, and layers are things that are common in Google Slides. They're in Canva, they're in Adobe Photoshop. It's just a kind of a common term. So I like this because you can just kind of drag things up and down. And these circles are way at the bottom. So I'm going to drag myself even further down.
Jamie, we have a question
Yeah.
about Adobe Express. Is it free for educators and students? And
It
are
is.
any of the other Adobe products free for schools?
Adobe Express is basically their kind of their freebie. So it's not as robust as their full Creative Cloud suite, which, you know, some schools are subscribers to, especially more at the high school level where kids are using it for yearbook and, you know, video production and those kinds of things. But I mean, they have folks you can talk to where you can get pricing for those subscriptions. KDE actually subscribes so that we can use those pieces of software to create things. It's pretty easy to use compared to the days when we had to go around to individual computers and install that software manually. It's in the cloud. I mean, you install it on your PC or your Mac, but you know, the subscription part's in the cloud, and you kind of always have the latest version, which is nice. Hopefully that answers that question. But it's very similar to Canva Education. You know, you get a few more features than you would if you were just, you know, somebody from the general public trying one of these tools out. Any other questions while we're working on this? This looks pretty terrible, by the way. I've messed the template up so much.
What's the difference between Canva and Adobe?
There are differences. Like, I don't have them listed out. I think, to me, just my general impression, Canva's I feel like I've been around in this space a little bit longer. This, you know, this cloud-based creation tool kind of thing. And some of they have so many features. It's like, it's a little overwhelming. And Adobe Express is kind of getting to that point too. But it's really just a preference thing, or, you know, one school district might approve Canva or Adobe or the other way around, and that's a thing. But I think having them both as options is a great idea. I like some of the things that Adobe does. I like some of the things I wish I could just make one awesome tool. I like another tool called Genially. I'll share a link to that too at the end, so you can try it out. It's actually a company that was started in Spain. But it's very similar to Canva, but it has some features that Canva doesn't have, has some features that Adobe doesn't have. I wish I could just combine Google Slides and Canva and Adobe and Genially all in one, but sadly that's not a thing. So kind of just
Genially is my favorite. They have breakout rooms in there. It's great.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Genially is pretty cool. So in these slides, again, I have some other templates here that you can remix. What's really cool about these is that they're great. I mean, they're great for content and demonstrating that kind of learning, but they're great icebreaker type things too, and getting to know your kids, because they're so personalized. And, you know, your kids can work on these and, you know, give you a feeling for what they're interested in, the things that they're passionate about, and turn those back into you. I've done a few trainings where they did this book cover version, where you basically just make your own book cover as a project. It's kind of fun, kind of cool. The training I did talked about the pandemic. I was like, let's not talk about the pandemic anymore. Let's move on to something else. I do have this slide here that I kind of just last night, I'm not joking, because it keeps changing and keeps getting updated, but these are kind of the new features in the beta version that I think are really important. We talked about that text editing. I should have put that first. If you were there for Donnie's session earlier, we talked about Firefly. That's some AI generative image things that Adobe is providing. I don't see how they're going to be able to make that a free feature, but maybe they are. I don't know. I haven't seen like what their plan is, but I would assume that has to be something you pay for, because it does so much. And I'll show it to you here in a second. The video editing is really cool and easy. It just doesn't, it's missing a few things. Like, you can't fade the sound out. You can't, you know, do some more fancy things like you do in normal video editing software. But keep in mind, this is in the cloud, and video is something where we kind of struggle, especially with, I don't want to say the wrong number, but, you know, 90% of our students using Chromebooks. You're kind of limited to that, you know, web-based video editing. This gives you another option, which is always good. And especially if it's, you're not having to pay much for it. This is something they added to the scheduling social posts. This has been in Canva for a while. but has not been in Adobe, you can actually use Adobe Express or Canva as your between your social media. So if I want to post something on Twitter with an image that I've created, I can schedule that inside of Adobe Express or inside of Canva, and then it will post on my behalf later on at the time that I schedule it, which is really cool. And some text effects that are neat too. At the end of this, I have my email address. So if you ever have any questions on this, I'm happy to talk through it with you if you need to, or you just want to bounce some ideas off of me, I'm happy to do that. And then that's kind of the end of the slides. I'm not going to click on every single link for you and do that. I'm going to go to, I don't want to confuse anybody. The Adobe Firefly is kind of their umbrella for all AI things and the images that it can generate. It's being built into Adobe Express. It's being built into Adobe Photoshop. It's being built into Adobe Illustrator. So they're tying their AI features into the software that they already have that exists. So it's kind of cool. But you can also right now, everyone for free, if you have an Adobe account, go to Firefly as long as you're logged in. And here's text to image, which Donnie showed you quite a few examples of this morning, or earlier this afternoon, where you type the text and you generate it. This generative fill thing is really pretty new. Like in the last 2 weeks, I'm not kidding. Like it's going that quickly. You can literally highlight, kind of brush a part of your picture that you want to replace, and then use text to tell it what to replace that part of your photo with. This is why I'm kind of go back and forth between freaking out about AI and being really excited. It's going to change things. I don't know how fast it's going to change our instruction. But I think we need to be thinking about it. We need to be practicing with it. Like I use it every day just to see what the limits are. And I know there's ethical issues, and I'm not totally even resolved on what that means. And I don't really know, like they used photos from their own catalog that they've had for a long time that you can subscribe to get stock images. And they used copyright free images, things that are in the public domain, to train their Firefly product. Other things like Midjourney and some of the ones Donnie was showing, I have no idea where they're getting their images from. I feel like they've taken them just from the internet, whether people wanted them to or not. At least Adobe's version, it's, they're kind of asking permission. They're getting that permission from the artists that they've already paid for their work, which is nice. They're also developing software that's letting folks who are artists tag their images so that they can't be scraped, and part of the AI learning that goes on in the background. So hopefully that becomes more of a standard. On this screen, there's some text effects. This is cool. You actually type your word and then type what you want into this. So let's do a few of these. Let's do the text to image. I really like Adobe's version. It's really pretty and it's easy to use. So I'm going to type something in. A professional development session on Adobe Firefly at Kentucky Education Television. Educational or education? I'm just typing some words and then generate. And right here, you can change your ratio that you want. Landscape, portrait, square, widescreen, vertical. And here's some options. Kind of crazy looking, but kind of cool too. If you like one of them, you can click on these little wavy things right here, and it will keep this one and show you 3 more that are similar to it. This is a lot harder to do in Midjourney and some of those other ones, but in Adobe, it's really kind of quick and seamless and easy. And keep in mind, I'll show you this in a second too. I'm going to have to keep an eye on my time here. We're good. This feature, this text to image feature, is inside of Adobe Express, the beta version, the new version. Canva has a version of this too. I like Adobe's better, but that's just my preference. Those folks look really scary, so I don't like that one. So, but you can change this. So if you don't like it, or you want some different kind of art styles, like I really like this layered paper one. You just click on layered paper, and you notice at the bottom, I can't zoom in very easily, but at the bottom it says art and layered paper. So you hit generate. It's going to replace what you have there with the changes that you've made. Adobe's just kind of made it a little easier to get some certain kinds of looks without having to do the text. You just kind of click on the buttons. But you can kind of see like it's like layered paper that's cut out and kind of like a collage. It's really cool. You can favorite it, save it for later. I think there's, yeah, the generative fill is built in right here now, like where you can, let's try it out. Let's click this. Say we don't want that awesome butterfly on the screen right there. Put a photo of a book in this space. I don't even know if I'm doing this right. This is how new this stuff is. Then I'm gonna click generate. Again, it gives you the 4 options. Anyway, I kind of got distracted when I was talking about the, creativity not being a thing that you're just born with. I mean, it takes practice. I really, really, really like how these tools kind of just jumpstart that creativity. You can just tell it what you're thinking and get that stuff and get an idea. And right now, Adobe is pretty explicit about saying these are not for commercial purposes. So if you create something in Adobe Firefly right now, it has a watermark. I mean, obviously some people are going to remove that on their own and use these things anyway, but they're like, this is for non-commercial purposes, and education is definitely non-commercial. So, but you get the idea. That's cool, right? You got 4 different versions of a book on that screen there. And I didn't really have to do anything except tell it what I wanted. I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to go back to, let's try the text effects because it's really fun. Generate, describe the effects you want to generate. I keep doing books because I'm a school library person. Books and school library. And I'm going to hit generate. And right now they're using the word Firefly, but we can change that word to, I'm just going to do my name. And even as I type it, it's filling it in. It's actually filling in these words into the shape of these letters. And you can kind of change it tight, medium, loose over here. You can change the font, a couple different ones. Pretty cool, right? Like, I know we're not in the room together and I can't hear you like oohing and ahhing, but I imagine that you are. I don't know. I was when I first saw this.
James, I have a question. If
Yeah.
your school district has the educational version and your students can log in as your class, etc., is there a way that I can see what my students are doing, or do they have to share with me? Does that make sense?
It does. Canva has, I keep talking about Canva too. It's kind of a dual session, I guess. But Canva has a classroom type feature where you can do assignments. I don't love it. Sorry, Canva. It's kind of clunky. I know what they're trying to do. To me, it's easier to like create that template that I want the kids to use and then push that out with my LMS, whether that's Google Classroom or Canvas or whatever it is that you use, and let them work that way. But no, I don't think there's a magical button that's like, let me see everything they're doing. I mean, obviously the district owns their device and everything they do on there. So you can, see things the way you traditionally do, but I don't think there's a special like.
So you would still
feature.
use your LMS, whatever that is, to
yeah, I mean, that's what
push
I would
out
do.
your Adobe.
I hope right now, I know I apologize going back and forth between these versions. I hope the new beta version is closer to Canva. I'm actually going to open up Canva real quick to show you how easy it is to create these templates. So here's one I did, this infographic for a library. No thanks. So I click this little share button. I can go down here and click more, and I can get this template link right here. And when I get that works for anyone, whether they're in my school or not. When somebody uses that link, it opens up this design in Canva and it's ready to edit. Adobe is trying to do that. I don't think they're quite there yet. I hope they will be by the time this beta thing gets pushed out to everyone. There are some ways to do it, obviously, because I gave you those links in the presentation. It's not as easy as Canva is right now. But anyway, instead of using the classroom built into Canva or some of the features that are built into Adobe, I just grab this link and then put that in my Google Doc, in my presentation, in my Google Classroom, or however it is you communicate with your kids. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Let's see, let's go back. This is cool. This is a little more nerdy and design like, but there are vector images, which there's vector images and raster images. So digital pictures like we take with our phones, those are rasterized images, like there's pixels if you zoom in close enough. Vector images do not have those pixels. Like you can keep zooming just like you do with fonts. You know, you keep zooming, it's always a really sharp line, and that's what vector images are. And sometimes those are in Illustrator. Sometimes you see SVG files. But this, you can upload a picture, not a picture, an SVG, a vector file. Let's do this cat here, try prompt. And it gives you options to color those vector images automatically. So over here on the right are just some options they have, like yellow submarine, lavender storm. And it's kind of mind-boggling how quickly you can get different versions of the work that you're doing. I mean, yes, you could go in Illustrator and Adobe Express and like click on these individual elements and recolor them, but it's so cool that you can just do this, you know, right here on the fly. And speaking, I mean, there's so many instructional connections with this, but definitely art, obviously. Like you can talk about relationships with color, like there's complementary, analogous, triad, split complement. I don't even know what that means, but I'm going to click on it. It looks good. But that's how, and just in, I'm being serious, and just in the past like 3 days, they've built this into Adobe Illustrator. So if you're a Creative Cloud person and have the full version of Illustrator installed, this feature is now part of Illustrator. So I can open up my work that I've already done in Illustrator and rework it with just a few clicks. Let's see. So that's all Firefly, those things I've been showing you. You can, once you have one of these images, toy photographer on the side. I mean, so you can click try prompt and just try one of these. You don't have to come up with your own images, own text. If you like one, we have to wait just a second. It's not immediate. Ah, cool. So let's say I like this one right here. I can just click download, and that downloads to my computer just like any other image off the internet. And when I do it, it generates those credentials and puts that little watermark in the bottom corner of the photo. Now I'm going to stop my share. I apologize, but I'm going to switch over to my, let me show you this. This is what it's going to look like if you try to go to this. New.express.adobe.com. So my KDE administrator for our Adobe accounts has not turned on the beta, which is sad. I asked Dr. Marty Park to do that, but he's a busy guy, so it's okay. So instead of doing this, I'm going to stop this and go to my personal Google account where I have my other Adobe account that I can just sign in and use that just like any other member of the public. So let me click this. I think this is it. Yeah. So this is the beta version. This is what it looks like. It's similar. It's really close, but it has some things added to it. You'll see right away the text to image. You can do that right here. You don't have to go to the Firefly site. You can build those images right inside of Adobe Express where you're creating your other work. I like this little plus button, gives you some immediate options. And a lot of these are the same pixel dimensions, but because it's a square, like, was it Instagram? I think I did Instagram Reel last night. I'll show you that example, hopefully. But you just click these, it'll open up a blank page for those. You can also, once you do that, this is I never thought in my whole life we would be talking about vertical video, but that's how silly I was back in the day. Then iPhones came out and everybody holds their phone this way. So we're doing vertical video now. Over here on the left, this is pretty new. There's lots of stock video things that your kids can use. So like this is just a background. I click that and it's in the timeline. It's there. This is where you add text. And this is what I was talking about, how it's so much easier now that we can just double click here in the box and say, this is so much better. And click this little dynamic button, which kind of automatically sizes it. We can't see it though, so let's make it. There we go. And then straight from this little screen right here, I can scroll down, click animation. I know I'm going really fast, but I promise, like, this is, like I was talking about the creativity thing being a thing you learn. Like, you just got to play in the stuff and practice. And I know we're not all on the same page there. Like, some people are really, sometimes I do wish we could just pause and learn the tools that we have, but it is so fun when we get new tools and new buttons to try out and new things. I feel like it just kind of spurs some creativity on. So we just click animation. There's the in. I can say pop. I don't like pop. Let's do drop. And then I can do out and have it spin. And then immediately you can see that preview right here. And it's kind of long, so I'm gonna, still kind of long. There you see the animation out, and you can add a scene. You can duplicate this scene. Right here, you can go to photos. You can do the text to image like we did in Firefly. So if we click this and do square, what if I say school libraries are awesome? Let's see what we get. Sometimes it says, you didn't give me enough information. But this time it didn't say that. That's good. Oh, not bad. Here's the crazy text that we were talking about with Donnie, how it doesn't really know how to generate images with real words. But you can see right there, it's in the timeline. I can move it around. I can apply effects. I can resize it. I mean, just so intuitive and easy to use. And then if you don't like that, you can always go to the templates. And there are so many starting points that you can go from. I mean, so many. And what I like to do is talk to students about, why are these templates good? Like, why does this work? And something that you just designed from scratch does not work. And a lot of times it's like two things. It's like fonts, and it's how much space there is between things. So sometimes I see designs that folks make and they have things all the way to the edges, which works sometimes, but other times it does not. Like, it just makes it harder to read. Like, our eyes and our brains need some space around things. So just don't be afraid to like give things just a little bit of blank space, some negative space around them to make things a little bit easier to see. And I'm going to go to my stuff to show you a finished example. I had super honor yesterday of hearing Kwame Alexander speak. I don't know if you know his name, but he's an awesome author and poet. Let's go. It won't let me click that. So let's try this arrow and go to my stuff here. There we go. Here's the poem that I did. So basically he had us write a poem live in the room. So he said a library is, and then had folks go around the room and, you know, say what a library is to them. And I just took the words that someone nicely wrote down and took record of and turned it into this presentation. And I just used the same dynamic text for everyone, just copied and pasted. And I use icons that are built in. If you've heard of Noun Project, those are licensed for both Canva and Adobe. It's basically an icon for anything. Thankfully, the Canva and Adobe versions leave out the more adult icons that are there. So don't just send kids to nounproject.com. Like, that's not a good idea. Use Adobe and use Canva to do that. So I'm gonna hit play. I don't know if you can hear it, but there's some music that came from Adobe too. And you can see the timeline down here, and it keeps going. I like this one. Library is my escape. But like I was talking earlier, we can click on these elements. We can even select and drag on multiple elements. I'm going to unselect by holding the shift key, unselect the photo in the background because I don't want to mess with it. But I can change the color of both of these at the same time. Say I want those to be, oh, that's not enough contrast. This darker color. And it changes both of those together. If you click on media, no, not media, elements. Sorry, I get those confused. Elements, there's all kinds of stuff in here, but you can go up here to the top and there's one that says icons. This is where the Noun Project stuff is. So if I type in books, I'm going to get 10,000 versions of books. And I really like these icons and how simple they are to use. You just click it and it's in your design. Super easy. And there's always undo. You go back to my colors. What questions do we have? Let me look at the chat. I haven't looked at the chat in a while. Sorry. Yes, I think you can post to Instagram from it. Let me click on share. This is where the schedule post thing is, but they have, does not, oh, the beta version does not currently support sharing video, audio, and animations, but I think they will. If this was just a static image, these would be lit up and we could click on those. So it has Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and LinkedIn. How did I erase? I just click on an item and hit the delete key. I don't know if that's the only way, but that's how I do it. Have you ever made a TikTok through this? This little animation that I made would probably be my closest TikTok creation, but I didn't post it to TikTok, but you definitely could. If we go to, let's just go back out to the home page part and click on new. If we type TikTok, it gives you that template right there and it's already the right size, and you can go to templates and choose the things that you want. Ooh, how do they do that? See, I'm learning too. I think this is the video that they just brought in. Those aren't separate elements, those pictures. Because I was trying to do that last night, like have multiple pictures in one scene, but I think you have to add a scene to change the background there. Oh, the butterfly part. Yeah, let's see if we can do that. Let's go to, I'm going to do another new one just because I can. I know we don't have many minutes left. Let's see if this works. I have no idea if this will work, but we're going to try it. It totally works in Firefly. If you go to Firefly directly. So there's crop, remove background, effects. Ooh, I can load more. I like that. I don't see that in here. Let's go back to the generative fill. I don't see the generative fill inside of Adobe Express. So you might have to try that. You might have to do that in Firefly itself, like the actual Firefly website. What other questions you all have? I feel like I've left some things out. I was going to show you Genially, I think, at the end. I'll give you that link. I don't have that in the slides, but there is an education version. If you like just learning new tools, I like, it's kind of, if you think about ThingLink, if you've heard of that product, it's kind of like ThingLink and Canva combined, or ThingLink and Adobe Express combined, where you have like a really interactive image that you can share out. Copy this, put it in the chat.
Well, thank you, James. This was
Yeah.
a really great session. I wanted to make sure that folks had their questions. I saw a lot of questions go through at one point. Did anybody else?
Yeah, I
have
was
maybe
not
a
watching the
last-
chat at all. I'm sorry. I couldn't.
No,
do
that's
both.
okay. No, I did. And we got to most of them. I think everybody may have asked. Does anybody have any other questions? Thank you, James. Just
You're
somebody
welcome.
said you taught band. I didn't know that either. I thought that was really cool.
I thought I was going to be a band director, and then I student taught, and I realized I was not going to be a band director. So I actually taught elementary music for 2.5 years, and then I switched to the school library. So, but definitely take some time, play around with this. Just see what you can do. Try out the templates that are there. you'll start having ideas of how you can apply this to, it doesn't matter what content area you're in. There's a way to make it work.